On September 4th, 1957, armed Arkansas National Guard troops blocked 9 black students from attending all-white Central High School in Little Rock on their first day of school. The guardsmen are acting under orders from the governor of Arkansas, Orval Faubus. The integration of the school is one of the most important events of the civil rights movement. Let's get some background. The American Civil War ended in 1865. 3 years later, the 14th Amendment was added to the U.S. Constitution. It granted citizenship to formerly enslaved people. It also included a section guaranteeing equal protection of the laws. This so-called Equal Protection Clause has made the 14th one of history's most cited amendments in cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court issued its ruling in the Plessy v. Ferguson case, declaring segregation constitutional under the concept of separate but equal. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund won a landmark victory before the U.S. Supreme Court in 1954 with the Brown v. Board of Education case, which overturned in a unanimous decision the flawed principle set forth in Plessy v. Ferguson. Chief Justice Earl Warren's opinion declared that separate education facilities are inherently unequal. Thurgood Marshall was the lead attorney in the Brown v. Board case. The victory, of course, led to the desegregation of schools, but it did even more. The decision became the legal foundation for the civil rights movement. In fact, many would say the civil rights movement began with Brown v. Board in 1954. Thurgood Marshall accomplished this momentous legal win against the backdrop of great personal tragedy, as his wife of 25 years, Buster, was battling lung cancer at the time. She initially hid the illness from her husband, fearing it might distract him from his work on the case. Buster Marshall died just 9 months after the decision came down. Little Rock Central High School was chosen as a test of the Brown v. Board decision, with 9 high-achieving black high school students being the first to integrate the city's schools. Daisy Bates, an Arkansas NAACP leader, played an integral role in the integration of Central High. She pushed to get the so-called Little Rock Nine enrolled at the school and became a mentor to them. On their first day of school in 1957, 8 of the students met at Daisy Bates's home in order to travel together to the campus. Meanwhile, Governor Orval Faubus had sent the National Guard to block them from entering the school. The 9th student, Elizabeth Eckford, had not gotten the message to meet that morning, so she made her way to Central High on a city bus. When she arrived, she was blocked from entering the school by members of the National Guard. Eckford quickly realized her only option was to return home, so she began making her way back to the bus stop. She was followed by a vile crowd made up of both adults and students. Eckford sat on a bench at the stop and was surrounded by an increasingly volatile throng. With reporters and photographers documenting, the mob hurled racial slurs and called for her lynching. Grace Lorch, a white woman who had just dropped her child off at the nearby junior high, stepped in. Lorch scolded the mob and tried to comfort and reassure Eckford. When the bus arrived, Lorch not only escorted Eckford to the bus, but boarded it and rode with her to ensure that she got home safely. Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP filed a lawsuit seeking an injunction to block Governor Faubus's order. A U.S. District Court granted the injunction on September 20th. 3 days later, Faubus removed the National Guard from the school, and the Little Rock Nine attempted once again to attend Central High, this time with a police escort. 3 hours after classes began, however, a violent mob tried to force its way into the building, prompting school officials to send the teens home to ensure their safety. U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower stepped in to enforce the court's ruling. He ordered U.S. troops to Little Rock and federalized the Arkansas National Guard. 3 weeks after school began, the 101st Airborne drove the Little Rock Nine to school and guided them into Central High. To ensure the students' safety, Each was assigned a soldier to escort them from class to class each day for much of the school year. Ernest Green, the only senior among the Little Rock Nine, said of that school year, "Every day was like going to war." Green overcame a myriad of challenges to graduate from Little Rock Central High at the end of that year. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. attended his graduation. Green earned a scholarship to attend Michigan State University, where he received a bachelor's and later a master's degree. Green later served as Assistant Secretary of Labor under U.S. President Jimmy Carter. In an effort to turn back integration, Governor Faubus closed all 4 Little Rock high schools the next school year. But in reality, there was no turning back. The Little Rock Nine became a catalyst for integration nationwide. In 1967, President Lyndon Johnson appointed Thurgood Marshall as the first black U.S. Supreme Court Justice. Americans celebrate President's Day on the third Monday in February in honor of George Washington's birthday. In Arkansas today, that day is also set aside to honor Daisy Bates. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 476, the Roman Empire falls when German barbarian Odoacer deposes Emperor Romulus Augustulus. In 925, King Athelstan of the West Saxons is crowned as the first king to rule all of England. In 1781, 44 Spanish settlers from Mexico establish what becomes Los Angeles, California. In 1951, a speech by U.S. President Truman becomes the first nationwide television broadcast in history. In 1951, Frank Sinatra plays in Las Vegas for the first time, performing at the Desert Inn Hotel and Casino. In 1998, Larry Page and Sergey Brin formally incorporate search engine company Google in a friend's garage. In 2002, Kelly Clarkson, a 20-year-old cocktail waitress from Texas, wins Season 1 of American Idol. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. 2 assassination attempts were made on President Gerald Ford in which U.S. state? California, Illinois, Texas, or Virginia? Think you know the answer? Drop your guesses in the comments below. Find out if you're right next time on Today in History. You made it through Today in History. Nice work. Now treat yourself. Click the video on the right for what happened yesterday in history. Still can't get enough? The link on the left's got the whole playlist buffet. Want to make history a daily habit? Click my face in the middle to subscribe.